In this video, I'm going to be reviewing several keyboards for Windows from the perspective of a former MacBook Pro user. Prior to getting my MacBook in 2013, I didn't think much about keyboard design. Most of the keyboards that I've had experience with up until then were the standard issue kind of keyboard that you get with a desktop. But when I got my first MacBook Pro, the quality of the keys were quite an upgrade. I really liked the feel of the scissor switches on that 2013 model. They provided a strong tactile bump, had great spacing between the keys, just the right amount of stiffness so that my fingers can feel around the keyboard without mistakenly activating a key. The backlight was also a nifty little feature, which was new for the time. And best of all, it was a very quiet keyboard, worthy of being inside of a library. So throughout the 2010s, I've stayed a loyal Mac user, all the way up until they introduced the 2017 model of the MacBook, which, in my opinion, is kind of a piece of junk.
What the hell is this sound? What a piece of shit.
I didn't like the butterfly switches because the short travel distance of the keys makes it difficult to feel around the keyboard without accidentally hitting a key, and other poorly designed features of that particular MacBook, like the touch bar, I think make more of an inconvenience than a feature. Some of the buttons that are in the touch bar, I found myself accidentally hitting a lot when just trying to hit other keys on the keyboard. So this year, for various reasons, I'm building out a PC, and I want a high-quality keyboard. So I'm going to be looking at a few mechanical keyboards, which seem to be the latest trend in design, and very popular in 2020. But the first thing I want to show you is the MacBook Pro from 2016, which I'm going to use as a comparison. So this is the MacBook Pro 2016 model, and it uses what's called the scissor switch. And something that I want to note about this is that the tactile bump on this model is very strong and noticeable. So as you're typing, you have a very strong kind of resistance before the key kind of gives in and goes down. And when I'm typing a lot, your fingers can get very tired just doing a lot of regular typing. So that might be one of the reasons that somebody would not like this kind of keyboard, but for the purposes that I use it for, it's generally fine. The other problem that I have with the MacBook Pro specifically is that when I'm doing something that's CPU intensive, such as editing a video, this keyboard tends to get really hot, and when the fans get going, sometimes I even feel this weird kind of static coming off of the keys. I'm not sure if anybody else has experienced something like that, but it's almost like my fingers are getting hit with little electron charges or radiation or something like that. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you're familiar with working with a MacBook. But overall, I like this keyboard because of how quiet it is. I could take this to a library or an office and type away, and nobody's really going to notice me. So I connected a decibel meter app to this phone here, and I wanted to test out how loud this Mac keyboard is. Seemed like it was ranging about, around 40 to 60 decibels, just to give you a quantitative measure of what the sound is. So next I'm going to be taking a look at this Drevo Blademaster keyboard. It's a mechanical keyboard, and it has the Gatoron brown switches instead of the cherry brown switches. And one of the things I notice I feel like the tactile bump is a little bit more pronounced in the Gatoron switches versus the Cherry switches, but not by much. It's still nowhere near the Mac scissor switches. So I'm going to do a little bit of typing on this one, and we're going to see how loud it is. So as you can see, this keyboard was just about as noisy as the Arctech keyboard. About 80 decibels when typing. Something that I like about both of these mechanical keyboards is that they feel very solid. Like the design, that they're nice and heavy. The frame has a lot of quality to it, I think. But I think a lot of this noise is caused by just these keys being plastic, and they make a loud click when they hit the bottom. So let's see if we could quiet them down. Right here I've got some of these little rubber stoppers that you could put on the keys, and we'll see if that lowers the decibels. Okay, so what I've done is I put the little rubber stoppers on the number keys, and there's no stoppers on the letters. So we're going to do a little bit of comparison how those rubber stoppers work to cushion the number keys versus the letters. Ooh. Seems like it only made a difference of a few decibels. I could tell that there was a difference, but it wasn't by a whole lot. And having those stoppers on the number keys actually caused some of the keystrokes not to go all the way through. By the way, I really like the backlights on these mechanical keyboards. It does make them a little bit more fun. So this is the Red Dragon keyboard from Best Buy. I didn't know what to expect when trying out a mechanical keyboard like this for the first time. And I didn't know about the different types of switches that they have. So I ended up getting one with the blue clicky switches, not knowing that it's clicky. So this can give you a little bit of comparison here. We'll see how noisy the blue clicky switches is. So once again, we're around 80 decibels. Still pretty loud. I'd say this was just a little bit, the clicks were a little bit louder than the regular mechanical keyboard. They're all noisy as hell from my perspective. So I don't think it made that much of a difference. But this one did have some really intentionally noisy switches that also had this echoing sound to them. I really do like the feel of these mechanical keyboards. They feel very solid when you're pushing down the keys. I like that about them. It's just that they're pretty noisy, and that's not what I'm used to coming from a MacBook Pro, which uses those really quiet scissor switches. Next, I'm going to be reviewing this Arctech wireless keyboard, which actually does have scissor style switches, so I think this one will have the closest feel to the MacBook Pro for the PC. Alright, so this was significantly quieter, as you could tell. We were back down when I was typing here around like the 60 decibel area and below, very similar to the MacBook Pro. Weirdly enough, it doesn't, I don't know if it's because I've been working with those other keyboards and trying out different things and my senses are a little dull now or not, but it just feels like something is missing or something versus when I have the laptop. Maybe it's because I'm used to this style of key being part of a laptop keyboard, and it just feels weird having it like just on the surface of the table like this. How strange. Here's like an old dome keyboard from like the 90s or early 2000s. It's got the rubber mesh underneath, not mechanical, so we'll see how much noise this type of keyboard makes. So what's interesting about this is that it falls a little bit below the 80 decibel line. So your old style keyboard is still pretty noisy, but it doesn't seem quite as noisy by a few decibels as the latest mechanical keyboards. So I guess that concludes this review. The one that I like the best is probably the Drevo keyboard, just because it has a really nice solid feel to it, and something about it makes it a little bit more fun to type on than like a standard office keyboard. I don't know. Why don't you put in the comments about what type of keyboards you prefer that you like? I'd be interested to hear like why people like such noisy keyboards and such clicky keyboards. It's been 3 months from when I shot the initial footage of this video, and over that time I grew to really like the feel of the keyboard with the Gatoron brown switches. I've adjusted the weaker keystroke bump in comparison to the Mac, and now when I type on my old MacBook, I feel like the keys are too heavy. The new keyboard is kind of loud, but it doesn't really bother me anymore. It's not like I'm going to be taking it to a quiet coffee shop anytime soon anyway. But being able to change the backlight is an enjoyable, nice-to-have feature that makes using this computer a little bit more fun. Also, on the Arctech wireless keyboard with the scissor switches, I've used it a few times since the original review, and I noticed that every once in a while it will send some additional keystrokes causing some weird typos in whatever I'm writing. So my favorite keyboard right now is the mechanical one by a long shot, and I don't miss typing on the MacBook Pro at all. Windows has also dramatically improved since the last time I've used it, and that's a topic for another video. So if you found this review of various keyboards helpful, please don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.